We now take a look at the Teapot Dome scandal, one of the worst political scandals ever to be witnessed in this country. After President Harding gave total control of the naval oil reserves to the Secretary of the Navy, the power was abused for personal and monetary gain. We happened to catch Albert Fall, the Secretary of the Interior, negotiating with Mr. Sinclair, an oil businessman, on the issue of the reserves. And now we go live to a reporter standing by in Teapot Dome, Wyoming, to give us up-to-the-minute coverage on everything going on at that particular location at this particular time. Reporter, what's going on there in Teapot Dome?
Well, not that much, Bob. It's a rather slow day in the news here at Teapot Dome. I'll get back to you if anything remotely interesting happens at all.
Wait a minute, cameraman, zoom in on those men in the background.
Hey, you got the money or not?
I got the money. You got the stuff?
I got the lease to the oil fields right here.
How do I know you ain't ripping me off?
These are high quality fields. The Navy uses this oil.
Wait a second. If the Navy uses the oil, then doesn't the Navy control the oil?
Nah. I convinced Edwin Denby, the Secretary of the Navy, to give me control of the reserves. He doesn't know I'm about to deal it away.
Perfect. Mammoth Oil Company in control of Navy oil reserves. What are you gonna do with the 400 grand?
I ain't telling anyone.
Wait, Mr. Fall, I have a few questions for you.
Yeah?
Is it true that the Secretary of the Navy has total control over the oil fields and can determine how much you can use?
Yeah, that's true.
Rumors have it that you convinced Secretary of Navy Edwin Denby to give you control of the naval reserves at Elk Hills and Teapot Dome, right here. Is this true?
You can rest assured that nothing's gonna happen. Yeah. I got a meeting or something. I'll gotta go.
Wait, Mr. Fall! Well, that was awfully suspicious. It seems that Mr. Fall refused to comment on the situation. Back to you, Anchor.
We now have Nathan Burrell, professor at Yale University, who is here to comment on the events that have just occurred. Good morning, Mr. Burrell.
Hello.
We're glad you could join us today. First off, what are your thoughts on the events that just transpired?
Well, according to my expert opinion, it would seem as if Fall was making a deal with Mammoth Oil Company by selling them government and military-owned oil fields. In my opinion, that's a huge scandal involving huge politicians and business owners. This could blow up into a scandal of huge proportions. We'll just have to see what happens when the newspapers get a hold of this.
Are you familiar with how the laws concerning the Secretary of the Navy work?
Yes, of course. And I can tell you that everything here is definitely illegal. The Secretary of the Navy does not have total power over the oil reserves. However, they're supposed to be responsible and use their power in order to benefit the United States in the long run, not benefit individuals for monetary gain.
Thank you for your time, Dr. Burrell.
My pleasure. It's always great to have an opportunity to make myself seem better.
Okay then. We will now address the issue of the 1921 Emergency Quota Act, which further impeded immigration to the United States this year. As many of you can remember, earlier this year Congress passed legislation that restricted the amount of immigrants that are allowed into the country to 3% of the total immigrants from that country that are currently living in the United States. So for every 100 people of a certain country, only 3 are allowed in each new year. This piece of legislation was called the Emergency Quota Act. The amount of immigrants that this act allowed this year was 357,802 people. Let's take a look at what happened when the 357,803rd and 357,804th people tried to come in.
Sir. Sorry to inform you that you are the 357,803rd and 357,804th person to enter the country this year, so let's turn this around.
为什么美国种这个东西啊？
I'm sorry, sir. We don't speak Chinese.
Why does the United States do this? Why? I don't get it. Why, God?
The Emergency Quota Act is limiting the number of immigrants we allow into the country to prevent American culture from lowlifes like you. Turn around, please.
I'm
Go.
gonna have to ask you to leave.
But why? Why, man? Why you do this?
Where's the mom? It's okay.
Why is that 2 million?
And now, we will interview Republican Senator William P. Dillingham from Vermont, the original proposer of the new act. Mr. Dillingham, it's great to have you with us today.
It's my pleasure.
Mr. Dillingham, tell us about your reason for proposing this bill.
Well, you see, it has come to my attention that there are too many foreigners that are coming to American shores, especially after the Great War. It seems that the quote on the base of the Statue of Liberty that says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore," has become all too true and is ruining the American culture. I originally proposed this bill as a temporary measure to decrease immigration and allow the American culture to develop on its own without bombardment from other ethnic groups.
Were you angry that President Wilson rejected the bill?
Naturally I was. His use of the pocket veto was despicable, and he let in a multitude of immigrants that should not have come in the first place. When President Harding took office, he knew that it was in the common interest to pass such legislation.
Thank you for your time here, Mr. Dillingham. I just have one more question. You said that this was a temporary measure. Are there any plans concerning the future limitation of immigrants currently being talked about?
It's been my pleasure. As for a new piece of legislation, talks have been going around, but most senators and representatives, such as myself, feel happy with this law that has been accomplished.
Thank you. And back to you.
为什么？为什么？为什么？那个钱都？为什么？
We have Dr. Gao here today, one of our regular correspondents with whom we discuss issues of immigration. Welcome, Dr. Gao.
Good afternoon. It's good to be back.
Could you give an analysis of the interview we just had with Mr. Dillingham?
Well, it seems that Mr. Dillingham's insight is incredibly poor. How do you think this nation was built anyway? Immigrants are an essential part of the American culture. There's no way that limiting immigration will be beneficial in any way to American society. Mr. Dillingham thinks that with more ethnic diversity, we will experience more disunity. But in my opinion, it will cause America to be more united and create our own distinct culture, which will be an amalgamation of all the different cultures that are introduced to these shores. Had immigration not occurred in the past, our country would be depressingly similar to that of Britain or other countries where white Anglo-Saxon Protestants dominate. Concerning the act itself, it is highly discriminatory to the new immigrants, or those from countries in the southwestern Europe and Asia, among others. Since the act is based on the census of 1910, it greatly favors Eastern Europeans. This underhand ploy is extremely evident and is despicable.
Could it be possible that you're a bit biased on this issue?
Impossible! It's preposterous! I never let any personal judgment cloud my expert reasoning.